Well, I think we had to start off this week as, well, quite frankly, what Mark Francois this week has uh, uh, sorry, Franciscus. I can't remember his name now. Is that how you pronounce his second name? I can't remember. It should be. Um, but yeah, it doesn't sound very English, does it? And bear in mind, I think this guy is such a gammon. I can peer into my crystal ball and predict that one day he might change his name to, Mark English. I doubt so, but he is the chief gammon himself, his sweet hamminess himself, and he wrote well, we were going to cover it last week, and I'm surprised that Michel Barnier actually responded to this. But his response, quite frankly, is so good. Mark Francois, Mark Francois. I'm going to call him Mark Francois now because that's the only thing I can remember. It's stuck in my head now. Mark Francois is so done now. He is oven ready and he's coming out. And quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, he has got a wonderful Sunday lunch for us all to feast on, even though it's a Monday. But anyway, onto this quite frankly wondrous thing. And as always, we've come forward on this channel and told you all these Brexiteers talk constantly about the EU. But when it comes to actually the facts of the EU, how it works, what it actually does, that's where they start to fall apart, because they are all rhetoric and no substance. And Mark Francois is exactly the same. This is going to be one of the people who in future gets blame heaped on him massively. And I'm looking forward to the future stories of this guy's absolute irony when he is trying to declare that Brexit has been a rounding success, and all data shows that is being completely wrong, as we are about to see in tomorrow's video. But we'll get to that when we get to it. So anyway, today's story comes from the New European, and the title of the article is Michel Barnier schools Mark Francois on Brexit deal he backed in the House of Commons. So, responding to a letter by the Eurosceptic MP titled A Missive from a Free Country. I mean, the title, quite frankly, just says it all. On June 29th, Barnier explained, while no one has been able to demonstrate to me the added value of leaving the most integrated economic free trade area in the world, I have always respected the UK's decision to withdraw from the EU. In the same spirit, we approach the ongoing negotiations with your great country, and indeed free country. Ooh. We were always a free country, but you know, Barnier just going elbow, just to rub it in. The EU's chief negotiator told Francois that Brussels would hold Boris Johnson to the joint political declaration, a non-binding communique that broadly sets a free trade agreement between both parties. And that's the situation that we are now in. Boris Johnson and all the rest of these people have signed. It went through Parliament. They voted for it. But now, what's this? You don't like it? You want to change it? You want to have your cake and eat it? And as Michel Barnier has said, the UK is pushing to have privileged access to the EU without any of the responsibilities. And as we've said from the very beginning, and as they said from the very beginning, you will not be allowed to cherry pick from the EU what you like and not have what you don't like. You have it all or you have none. And this is what is happening now. We talked about this before, that the Boris Johnson and all these Eurosceptics seem to think that we deserve somehow access to the EU. No, it's going to be an absolute awful coming decade. It really, really is. As I said, we've got the Conservatives in until at least 2024, yeah, it's not going to be good, because I can tell you now. You look at Ricky I can't say. You look at our Chancellor's New Deal, and that is him trying to help people, thinking that, well, we'll give you money off deals on dining and going out, Monday to Wednesday. Hey, helps no one at all. Boris Johnson obviously proclaimed that this was the New Deal for the UK, and of course, as we went over last week, it is completely unambitious in any way, shape or form, because it's not what the Conservatives actually want to do. Giving money to the people, investing in our country. Don't be silly. He's only committed, 0.2% of our GDP, when Roosevelt, when he did America's New Deal, committed over 40% of America's GDP. Just as a comparison. So you can see, not going to help. And of course, this is all the Conservatives' mess, and Brexiteers at the same time. So, they've got no one to blame, and I keep on reiterating this, no one to blame but themselves, as we've just been through there. The article continues, and he reminded the ERG chair, this is the European Research Group, so you'd think that a European research group and the head of it would have done some research on Europe and what's been going on in these negotiations, especially what they signed. But of course, the European Research Group has done no research on Europe, so he reminds the ERG chair that the deal he was complaining about was the one he voted for. He continued, the political declaration, he added, was agreed by your Prime Minister and voted for by the House of Commons, including yourself. Barnier defended the need for the level playing field guarantees from the UK, and he said that for the sake of fairness, after 5 decades of close economic connectedness and sharing of the single market and the UK's geographic proximity to Europe, that assurances were necessary. And I agree. It's completely acceptable for them to ask these things. And, if you want to have access to Europe, then you're going to have to play on our level playing field, same as everyone else. And if you don't like it, you know where the door is, he's basically saying. He also warned that Brussels would not agree to any economic partnership without a balanced fisheries agreement based on quota shares and reciprocal access to waters. The 2 preconditions were also included in the political declarations signed by the Prime Minister Johnson, he highlighted. So, just to really highlight what's going on, the UK and our Prime Minister and our Parliament have agreed to negotiate by these set guidelines. What is happening now is that Johnson and these Brexiteers want to go and do something else, but they passed a law through Parliament. These are what we are going to agree to. These are what we are going to negotiate by. Now, they've got into these negotiations and just gone, woo, as far from those as they possibly can. Now, what's the European Union to do? Well, the European Union's doing what, quite frankly, anyone else would do in these negotiations. They're basically saying, you agreed and said you would do this. You are not doing this, so until you actually start to agree by what you said, you're not going to get what you want. But of course, I've said this for a while now, I think this was the plan from the very beginning, just to get a no deal, because of course this opens up the Conservative wonderland, and I've already said, watch out for next year. You think you've lost your rights now, leaving the European Union? Wait until January of next year, because that, ladies and gentlemen, is when the true Conservative agenda will come online. Anyway, it continues. We will continue to work with determination to conclude the negotiation with success as we continue to believe that these can be done despite the short time available, which is the choice of your government, Barnier said, referring to Downing Street's refusal to extend the Brexit talks. The French politician told Francois that that it had been a pleasure to hear from the UK elected representatives. Having been an elected representative for many years myself, you can tell Barnier is just like boom. I value your critical role you play in scrutinising and holding your government to account, he said. Otto English commented, what do we learn from Michel Barnier's letter to Mark Francois? We learn that he writes better English than Francois for a start, and secondly, that he understands the complexity, the seriousness of our leaving. Aaron Firth tweeted, Barnier's letter to Mark Francois, in which Francois is schooled in what his Prime Minister Boris Johnson agreed to and which he voted for, is a pure thing of beauty. James O'Brien said, Michel Barnier having to explain to Mark Francois what Mark Francois voted for sums things up perfectly. Francois later told The Telegraph that he was grateful for the charming bullet deox, I think that's how you say it. He said, as he rightly acknowledged that we are now a free country, and indeed very happy to be so. Yeah, and as usual, the Brexiteer missed the point. He absolutely got schooled. And by the way, we've always been a free and independent nation, even in the EU. Just because we've left it, we're not gaining anything. We're losing far more than we actually gain. And even those gains are incredibly questionable to be actual gains. You'd really have to do some Herculean stretching to really argue that there are any gains of any way, shape or form. But anyway, there you go. Of course, this Brexit mess continues. And is it any wonder that some, shall we say, not only Brexiteers, but Brexit supporters are starting to get cold feet about the whole thing?